welcome to DCxPC Live Presents Scene Support, the podcast that spotlights the people behind the scenes who keep DIY and underground music alive. From the bookers and the sound techs to the zine writers and venue operators, we're here to give credit where it's long overdue. I'm your host, Scott Pash, founder of DCxPC Live, a DIY label documenting live punk, hardcore, ska, and metal through short-run vinyl releases. After decades in bands behind the scenes, I've learned that the scenes don't survive on music alone. They survive because people build infrastructure, take care of each other, and imagine something bigger than a show flyer or a lineup. Today we're with Wynne, the founder of In Effect Hardcore. Chris started In Effect as a print fanzine in Queens in 1988, making just 50 copies of the first issue, and as he became a regular at Sunday matinees at CBGB's, bought and traded over other zines, traveled with friends' bands, sold copies to shows throughout New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and beyond. Those first 50 copies grew into something much bigger. He ultimately produced 12 issues of In Effect, printing 10,000 copies of the final issue, and distributing every one of them DIY style, selling them on his car, trading with other zines, bringing copies to shows, and handing them to anyone he thought might connect with hardcore. He even carried extra copies while working as a gate agent at LaGuardia, starting conversations and passing them along to travelers who looked like they might be part of the scene. After deciding to end the print edition in 1999, Chris eventually brought it back as a website in 2012. He's updated it consistently ever since, covering bands, records, shows, and the culture surrounding hardcore without the headaches of driving from store to drop off zines and then turning around and writing to collect money. The complete run of In Effect was actually preserved by DC's Shining Light Press in a massive 722-page anthology collecting all 112 original issues along with additional essays, photographs, flyers, and context from Chris. Chris supports the scenes even beyond this. He co-hosts the weekly internet radio show Bring the Noise on WAXX with Holly from Outsider Magazine, a past guest, collaborator, and good friend of this show. Chris also contributes articles to Outsider and serves as its Long Island distributor, regularly getting hundreds of copies into people's hands. Whether he's reviewing a new record, putting up stickers, trading with people around the world, handling a publication to someone at a show, or helping a young writer in Australia publish her first zine, Chris remains motivated by the possibility that someone might see what he does and decide to create something of their own. So I am stoked to talk with you, Chris. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. That was some freaking intro, man.
Wow, right? It's always fascinating because I've known about In Effect. You know, I've been around since the early 90s. So I was aware of the print zine. I'd seen it around, and I've obviously been aware of the website. But at the same time, when I ask people on the show and they send me their bios, sometimes I'm like, Jesus, fuck. How do they do all that?
Was I one of those people?
Right?
Was I one of those?
It's part of one of those, and part of it, like, I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing we're close to the relative same age. Longevity in this scene makes for a really lengthy bio if you've continued to be part of it and continue to do the work of helping and being part of punk and hardcore and all that other great stuff. So what's kept you going?
I don't know. I just love the music, and it's like, I don't know, the magazine started off because I wanted to help smaller bands, and there's always tons of smaller bands, as you know, doing a label and all the other things that you do. And I don't know, I just like, it's fun, it's rewarding when you get a band that's really good and, you know, they're not on people's radars, and you're the person who feels like, hey, I can expose this band to more people. And sometimes people catch on, sometimes they don't. And I don't know, that's what kind of, you know, that's one of the main motivating factors. The fact that it's easy doing a website now versus a fanzine. It's much easier to do, especially with the internet now. I mean, I still go to shows, I scout bands out, and it's just still a lot of fun to do. It's rewarding.
Did you self-teach yourself to do website stuff, or is that your background to begin with?
No, definitely not. I was watching a football game in probably late 2011, and a commercial came on for a website server called oneandone.com. Okay. And they said that it was easy to use as Facebook. $9.99 a month. There was a bunch of fees to get started. Me and my wife sat down. We started kicking it around, what to do, how to figure it out. And it actually turned out that it was just as easy to do as Facebook. So it was kind of like a template thing. You know, you set everything up. You just copy and paste kind of thing. And then I kind of like looked up, what bands do I want to cover? You know, I had been, there was a gap. The last print fanzine was in 99, and now it's the end of 2011 when I had this idea, and a lot of things had changed. I had still gone to shows, definitely not in the frequency that I had
Sure.
that I was going to. Kind of like it was like a relief in a way when the last issue and I finally said I'm not doing this anymore. It was just so much work, you know. It was
Sure. 10,000 copies is a lot of fucking copies.
dude, that was crazy. That was so crazy, and it's like I had there was so many like layers to doing, you know, building up to that last issue, and it's like, you know, I had every label. I had like Epitaph, Fat Records, and Victory. They would just and other labels where, well, Fat Records and Epitaph would just mail me new ads with a check for any release. It didn't. It's
Wow.
almost like they didn't care when the magazine came out. Maybe they didn't even keep tabs. I don't know, but they paid for the entire print. So I had 10,000 copies in my hand, basically for free. So, but I still sold these for $1. I was like, I've always sold them for $1, and that was like the first issue that I was actually able to kind of like, well, maybe the issue before it also, actually to kind of like break even or have an
Yeah.
opportunity, you know. And I mean, I ran with it. It's like I gave, you know, examples like bands that I would know. They were like, "Oh, we're going to tour in Europe for 3 weeks." I'm like, "Hey, can you bring magazines over? I'll give you a stack, whatever you can get for them. You know, if I give you 100, you give me $10. I'm happy with it because basically they didn't cost me anything."
Yeah.
You
That's
mentioned
brilliant.
also before one of the other, like, I love this story, like, you know, slick DIY kind of things was working for United Airlines at the time. You mentioned that I worked at as a gate agent. There was this deal that they had with FedEx where we got like 90% off shipping to international shipping. So
Yeah.
I met this guy Alan that lived in Belgium, and I met this other dude Hideki Honda who's still friends with me on Facebook, who lived in Japan. So these two dudes, I would mail them hundreds of copies. Like, you know, like there were cases where the magazines were in Japan before they were in Manhattan, and I lived in Queens. So because
That's
it's like
amazing.
The FedEx stuff was being shipped, you know, like 2 day air.
Sure.
It was crazy, and it was like I was sending them hundreds of copies. I was charging them $1 a piece, so it was like they were loving it, and they banged
Nice.
tons of them out. And it was just wild how creative it was.
Well, I mean, zines were essential in the 90s. I mean, I was talking to my wife the other day. She was like, well, how did you discover, bands? I'm like, I'm sure I've told you before. I was like, it was either in zines like Maximum Rock and Roll or like Slug and Lettuce or something like that. Or I would like, buy a record or tape or, I was buying tapes back in the late 80s. And I'd open up the insert and see what bands they thanked. I was like, those are the bands. I don't know. And looking whatever t-shirts people were wearing. I was like, if some band came through town, all of a sudden you're like, oh, there was like a dozen people wearing this band's T-shirt. They must have played a show recently, and I missed it. Who the fuck is this band? I got to check it out. It was harder to do. So zines were so valuable to my upbringing. I grabbed every zine I could. I'd go to shows at the Wilson Center in D.C., and there was always people giving out zines or selling them for cheap. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going to grab every zine I have because even if half of it I didn't care for, there's always some nugget of dopeness in it. I found.
Absolutely
So,
correct. That's why I always liked getting all different zines and everything. Even if it was like the person's first issue and it's like they had tons of mistakes or whatever, there'd be something in each one that you would go back to, or you're like, I like this idea. I like how they approach it. And still today, the zines that I check out, there's like little nuggets, like you said, or the way they do things. You're like, maybe not, you're not going to steal their idea of how they do it, but it's like, you're like, oh, that I could do something like this that, just because you got an idea from what they did.
yep. It's funny. One of the kids that went to school with my daughter, they did a zine for their like eighth grade project, and Holly from Outsider, met with her, and she brought like all of her zines, like all her issues of Outsider and various other ones in this big book, and it was pretty dope because apparently the girls knew that her dad had been in like a ska punk band in the '90s, but had really never thought about it. And Holly actually had a zine where like they reviewed like one of his records, and she's like,
Wow.
"Look, there it is in a zine." From like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty rad. Like, I mean, that's that physical stuff. Like, I always get worried about like websites, like the lack of stuff sticking around. Like, for a hot minute, I did reviews on my website. I just couldn't keep up with it. People sent me too much stuff, and doing a really good review, like not just copy and pasting their press release and really listening, even to a single song and listening to it well, and not just saying, "Oh, the singer sounds like Motorhead." I was like, "Yes, yes, every gravelly voice person sounds like Motorhead, and every female singer sounds like Kathleen Hanna." That's just laziness. Takes time. So when I stopped being able to keep up with it, I actually removed that page from my website because it just felt outdated, and I kind of feel bad. I'm like, oh, I mean, I'd like to think that those reviews were up there for the band's, posterity forever. Hopefully they copied them. But like, if your website goes down, all that information just vanishes.
Yeah. Well, I moved away from that one-in-one company that I mentioned, turned into now they're Ionos, Ionos, based somewhere in Pennsylvania in the U.S., but I think they're a European company. They turned around one time, maybe like 2 years ago, and they said that I had too many what they call elements on my site, and that I was at that very moment I was blocked, like meaning I couldn't add any more elements.
Wow.
I was like, shit, what am I going to do? So then I reached out to some people. There was a guy that I know that had a guy here on Long Island build a website for him. So I contacted that guy, and I would say it's about 2 years ago now. It was the only time I had a lapse with the website. It was like maybe like 2 months, maybe 3 months, and I still did stuff on social media. Like I actually had interviews like on the social media to like kind of like I don't know, kind of like the new building is going up, and it's like but we're going to show you this soft opening kind of thing. But yeah, this dude that I use now, it's more like a hard copy, I guess, compared to this like company. And it's like I can call him or text him at any time, and it's like he'll fix stuff for me. Some glitches pop up where there's too many spaces or things just don't look the right way, and it's like he's there. It's not like I'm calling this company and I'm getting some kid that's there like from 5 o'clock at night to 9 o'clock at night getting minimum wage, and you just could care less.
No, I understand. I use Squarespace for my website, and it's kind of plug and play. And I did a GeoCities site back in the 90s, so I guess it's more like late 90s, early 2000s. But I'm not really super skilled at that. I had to have my brother who does like graphic art like make it look nice. Because my daughter, she was like 14 at the time, and she was mocking my website. She was comparing it to like Smart Punk and going, look, they have shapes and textures and colors, and your records are square when they're in their jackets, but they don't even look square on your website. Don't you know how to make it look like a square? And I was like, no, I'm not a web designer. I don't. I've gotten better though. I've learned. But like one day, 50 years from now, I'd like to think that somehow that website that you're working on and everything in there somehow is available. Maybe it's the old history teacher in me, but I don't want your content to disappear.
I would think I have. I don't know. You can't think. It's like we're 14 years in now. It's like I have ideas where I already had Shining Light put the book out for all the print copies of the fanzine.
Yeah.
I could see the thing where it's like I kind of like another dream, I guess, would be like to have like kind of like a greatest hits where not whole entire interviews are put in, but like kind of like snippets of sheer terror or a snippet from I don't know Strife, let's say, or any band where like the best pieces of that interview, and then it's like kind of like maybe laid out differently than it was on the website. I could see it. I did something like this on. Where did I do it? I have it actually on the In Effect website right now. It's buried somewhere. I wouldn't even know. I would have to really search for it. But I did this thing where I took all the best quotes from the original magazine issues, and it was like funny quotes, serious quotes that were like, it's time specific. And it was really cool to read them when they were just only a couple sentences from each band.
Sure. That's pretty rad. It almost reminds me like when I was a teacher and I would do like word walls, and all these kids would give thoughts and ideas, and then the program would like make a giant word wall of all the different like parts of their phrases that they said. So it kind of like make a cool little. That's pretty rad. It's a good idea. I think you should do that.
It's just more work. Yeah, so, but hopefully the website doesn't crash. In the next, whatever, I don't know, between now and the time that idea comes to fruition.
Are you the only person that builds content for In Effect, or do you have other people?
No. There's like there's always like a rotation of writers. I'd say right now we have 6 or 7 people that are solid that are on the team right now that regularly contribute, and then there are dozens of people that for whatever reason over the years it just was too much. They dropped off, wasn't into it. I find writing reviews is extremely over time. It's like you kind of like run out of tricks.
That's what I'm saying.
I like writing show reviews because show reviews, it's like you can talk about anything. You could talk about how the youth of today played in Philadelphia. I got in my car on a Friday afternoon, headed into teeth of the traffic between here and Philly, and the beginning of the review was like, talking about the hoagies that we got and the billboards that were Philadelphia specific, and things like that. And then it's like, oh yeah, I talked about the show too. But it's like, you can like go off topic, so to speak. But
Yeah,
the
no, I
review,
agree. I mean, like I said, when I was doing reviews, I found out I was running out of ways to describe bands in ways that was interesting and honest. I wasn't just comparing them to other bands. I was like, I've run out of interesting ways to present my same thoughts.
exactly,
Just kind of
dude.
run
It's like you
dry on
nailed it.
this.
You
Yeah.
absolutely nailed like what my thinking is.
I mean, that's kind of even like this podcast. Before this one, I did one on stage banter that was kind of a humor podcast. And it was fun, except that the bands would always tell me it was the funnest podcast they were on. But after about almost 2 dozen episodes, I was like, all these jokes are stale to me. Like, I don't want to tell them anymore. I don't find them interesting, and I can't come up with new skits and ideas. So this just has to end. But this, where we just hang out and talk, this is easy. I love meeting new people and learning about the dope shit they're doing. This is an easy thing to do. It's not having to, I don't have to force anything. It's going to go wherever it goes.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely see that.
So what do you find is like the most traffic part of your site? Do people go to reviews? Is the interviews? Like, I just got a copy of Razor Cake in the mail, and the first thing I did obviously is check to see which reviews they did for any of my records, because I'm just that much of a selfish prat that I want to know what happened with my stuff. But then I start going through and looking at other reviews. Then I start reading the interviews. I don't often dig into the columns. It's not my usual go-to.
I think that the actual interviews, it's like I stopped looking at the analytics stuff when I came over to the new website, to the new way the way the new site was built. I was like, I don't really care anymore. I don't want to look. I don't want to know. Whatever. I'm having fun doing it. If people like
Sure,
it, they like it. So it's like, I guess the only way to judge on stuff is the Instagram, views and likes and all that
sure, sure.
bullshit. And the interviews do really well. Depending on the band, you have a smaller band that's, has a demo out. Obviously, it's not as much as, you know, other stuff. So it's like, I don't know. I get caught up a little bit in the whole social media. Like, can you collaborate on this post so more
Yeah,
people can see it? And then, you feel like you're helping the bands out. And, sometimes they don't even, see the message but whatever. It's still, again, it comes back to I'm helping the scene. I'm helping the
yeah,
bands, trying to promote the music. And I like, genuinely, one of my favorite parts of doing the whole thing is getting the questions, the email back, or
yep,
actually be doing the interview in person and hearing what they have to say, and then listening to it later on, hear what they have to say, because that's interesting. And I like to get gotten older, like I like to, like I feel like I can ask questions in the sense of what I would have been thinking if I was in this band at 25 years old, 30 years
sure.
old, 35 years old. So and then like also like a lot of tour stories. I like hearing the stories of what kind of music are you playing when you guys are driving. Who's the lead DJ, so to speak?
Yeah.
You guys in
I mean,
the
that's like,
band. It's a big band.
yeah. I mean, I find that I've done interviews as a band. I have tended to prefer the in person ones versus the respond to the email ones, just because I feel like, if I give an in person one, then maybe I'm going to say something that's going to spark a question that they hadn't had prepared, and it's that unique question that's going to really like maybe stand out. I did an interview for Outsider Magazine that's going to come out in the next an eventual issue with Rebelmatic. I've worked with them a bunch in the past, and I am pretty sure that Holly is going to have to cut the crap out of that interview. So I think I talked to Creech for well over an hour, and I sent her the whole thing. I was like, "Yeah, I know you said only so many words, but here
I've
it
been
is.
there.
Take what you
I've been
want."
there with Outsider Magazine where I submit something. I'm like, but you just got to add these extra 200 words in because it's totally worth it.
That's what I tried to tell her. I was like, "I will pay for an extra 5 pages if you need me to." I was like, "I will take out the biggest ad ever. I will take out a full page, double page ad if I need to to get my full Rebelmatic interview in there." But I don't think she wasn't buying it.
Yeah, that's strict when you have that page count and what do they come in like? I think when I did it was like in 16s. Everything had to be a derivative of 16. I think it was 8. I don't know. One of the two. So every time you go over a certain number, you have to do another 8, or was it 16?
Yep. And I remember, like, I did journalism in high school in the 90s. Like, you have to have so many picas and all this. I'm like, yeah. I understand. I understand you have print limitations, but the interview is really good.
So going back to that, one thing that I kind of keep today was I don't double space. Like, this goes back to when I was doing the fanzine on a typewriter. I don't do double
Yeah.
spaces after a sentence, and I'm like, fuck it. That's just the way that's the way in effect works. And the other one was the word a lot. I always keep it as one word. I think maybe now I've kind of come off of that a little bit, but it's like I would type it. I'm
But
like,
you found ways to, like, I'm going to squeeze that content in there. Did you, like, research the thinnest, clearest font? Like, which font is going to show up the most clearest while taking up the least amount of space?
No, like for the actual magazine when I did it, it's like I remember I borrowed my friend's sister's typewriter, and I would just one finger pecking away, and my stepdad would be like, and even today he'd be like, I remember you'd be up to like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning typing away, and then it's like the erase function, the eraser broke, and it's like I could go in there with whiteout, but I would never be able to line it up exactly the same way. So I would type the whole entire page over. Basically, I did it like here's the picture, here's the logo or the graphic, and then I would put a little pencil, I would type around it. And if I made one mistake, I was so anal with that stuff that I would just do the whole page all over again. So I'm pretty good at typing now.
So were you like, when you were growing up, were you a writer, or were you a graphics person? Like, was this the sort of thing you normally did?
No, it's
or
like
did you go like, nah, I'm going to make myself learn how to do this?
The fanzine thing started where I lived in a town called College Point in Queens, and we would have to take the bus to Main Street Flushing to get to the subway. The station, the last stop on the 7th train was Main Street Flushing. It was like a conversion point for many people with other buses. So people getting to the subway would come, to Main Street to take the subway into Manhattan to go to CB's, later on Wetlands, later on Coney Island High. So anyway, we would run into people. And one of the people that I ran into was this guy, Freddie Alva, who did the New Breed cassette compilation and a bunch of other stuff like after that. And he basically, we started talking. He goes, "You want to do a fanzine with me?" I'm like, "How the fuck do you do a fanzine?" He goes, "I'll show you how to do it." And I think it was Mike Bullshit that might have shown him, but somebody showed him how to do it. It was kind of like this thing that gets passed along. So he goes, "You pick 2 bands and I'll pick 2 bands," or something like that, and we'll write them. I'm like, "We're going to write them." So we wrote letters and put them in envelopes, and the demos. I remember New York Hoods was one of mine, and I think this band Pressure Release that was from Connecticut and upstate New York. I think those were my 2 interviews. And this dude Paul from the Oi band Oxblood was our third person that was involved with it. But it was basically me and Freddie did most of the issue. So we wrote letters on paper and mailed it in envelopes. And sure enough, these bands wrote back. I was like, "Oh shit, they wrote back to us." So that was our interviews. And then when I first did, I did 1 issue with Freddie. The magazine was called New Breed. And who else? We had Raw Deal before they became Killing Time was in that issue. New York Hoods, Pressure Release.
Wow.
I think SFA might have been in that one. I forget. But hopefully Freddie doesn't say, you missed this band. So after the first issue, I was like, you know what? This is really cool. Freddie's a cool dude. And I was like, I want to put more of the bands that I want to do. So I started In Effect. And the name came from, at the time, was like kind of like a slang word. That shit's in effect, Accidental penalty on the 7-inch on the demo said that. MP in effect, we're going to bust shit up. Anyway, it was like kind of like a buzzword kind of thing. I took In Effect, and then I kind of started the same way. I remember there was a family, the Benettos family, that lived in Astoria. They moved to College Point, and they were friends where they lived in Astoria with Outburst lived on their block, AJ from Leeway lived on their block, and then there were other bands that lived in the neighborhood. So basically the first issue I had Outburst, and I just wrote questions down on a piece of paper, and then my friend Nick Benettos brought it over to Jojo, the drummer of Outburst, house. He wrote the answers down and gave it back to Nick, kind of like handed it off to me. And then, boom, there's an interview, And then, and then it's like, as time went on, issues 2, 3, 4, after I started bringing tape recorders to shows and kind of like, stalk people in bands and stuff. Like I had like some funny stories where you know, when you go to a show and it's like a band comes off people. Okay, let's back up. But a while back, when bands would play shows, they usually everybody would go outside after the band played, including the bands, and then everybody would circle around the
Sure,
singer.
absolutely.
Yo, what's going on, Scott? You guys were fucking awesome. So it was very hard to break into those conversations when there's a circle of people around. But anyway, one day I'm standing outside of CB's right as I'm working on issue 2, and so Walter from Gorilla Biscuits is walking by, and nobody's
Nice.
talking to him. Like, hey, dude, you want to do an interview with my zine? He's like, yeah, sure. And then they had the CBGB's canteen. We walked inside. I forgot who the other member. We grabbed the second member. And then, sure enough, issue 3, the dude from Supertouch, Mark Ryan, the singer, is walking around. He's not talking to anybody. I'm like, and I don't even know if he was on my radar, but I definitely had questions. I love Supertouch. And I was like, dude, you want to do an interview? Hell yeah, let's go. So we did an interview with him. And it's other ones where, like, we're on the train, and I'm like, telling my friends, like, if you see the singer for Breakdown, tell him, that I would love to do an interview with him. So my friend goes across the street to buy beer, and he comes back with Jeff Perlin from Breakdown, like in tow, and he's like
Shit.
pointing at me, like, my friend, this guy right here, do an interview with my friend. And I have a tape recorder in my pocket, and all the questions in my head, ready to go. And then that's how a lot of those interviews went down. It was pretty funny.
I love that. I mean, it's so organic. Like, you're just like, I'm just fucking gonna do it, and that. I mean, that takes a presence of mind, because I've thought about doing stuff like that. Like, I was at Camp Pennsylvania. I was like, oh, I should bring some software and some recording stuff, and I should record people, because scene support wouldn't exist. Bands wouldn't exist when people come into the shows, and then there's also the volunteers at Camp Pennsylvania. I was like, I'll do a whole live thing. I was like, man, there's just too much going on. I don't have the ability to like pause and do this. I did get interviewed for some podcast during Camp Pennsylvania, but it's like, for me to take the time to like say, hey, you know what, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and do this. I was like, I'm watching bands, I'm working with, I'm selling, I'm vending. I'm like, but like, so you take the time to go, hey, I'm at the show, but I'm going to take 15 minutes. And I'm going to like pull this guy aside and have this conversation.
Yeah, that goes back to the earliest, the earliest days of the fanzine itself. But even in the website days, my friend Josh, who lives in Wilmington, Delaware, was like, this is hardcore. It was like, it was around the corner from him, basically, Wilmington and Philly are real close. So we worked out a thing where we were doing like kind of like man on the street kind of interviews. So we came up with a bunch of weird questions, like kind of like, and actually, I think I scoped out people that were traveling from out of state, out of the country to This Is Hardcore. This is probably like in a 2013, 14, 15 range. So I would message these people on Facebook and say, like, hey, would you be interested in doing a quick, like 3 or 4 questions? And we are asking questions like, what's your favorite thing about Philadelphia so far? And people were like, nothing, the city sucks. Or like, the food is really good. And they're like, what's your least favorite things about Philadelphia? And people are like, the whole city smells like piss. There's no place to park, like. And but anyway, those came out really good, and we put them. We did those on video, and Josh spearheaded the whole thing. He's very outgoing, and he's like very into like just walk up to people and just start talking. So he was very lively, and he was able to do that. And some of them like really popped off. They were like a lot of views. I have a YouTube page for, in effect, not really a ton of views, but those things really went off. They were fun. They were actually a lot of fun to watch, and it's hard to come up with those kind of things. There's a lot of moving parts. Takes up a lot of time.
Sure. So when the zine was coming out, how frequently? You did 12 issues over
12 issues
years?
From 88 to 99. So that doesn't sound that it was kind of like issues 1, 2, and 3 were between 88 and 89. So in the year 88 to 89, I banged out 3 issues. And the page count wasn't that much, so it didn't really take as long. But what happened is CB's had all the fights, and there were like lots of fights were going on at shows. CB's got pissed off, so no more CBGB matinees. So it was kind of like, I don't want to say maybe a 3-year gap where shows were over here. There was no like home base for shows. So and before that, 88 to 89, it's like we would just go to CB's every Sunday. It didn't really matter who was playing. It would just be like, let's just go. I mean, there were a couple of Sundays we didn't go, but most Sundays we were just going down there just to hang out. So there was that gap. And then between, let's say, 93 to 99, I did issues 4 to 12. and each
Yeah,
issue grew in page count, so it took longer to produce. Each issue became, higher print run, which took longer to
yeah,
sell. So it was like I was in this
sure.
constant cycle. Like that issue 12 with 10,000 copies, it had 132 pages. It was insane.
That's a
It was
book.
insane. It's like, and I look back now, like I kind of, if I guess if I could do it over again, it would be something where I would probably do more issues and less content in each issue instead of 132.
Yeah.
Maybe cut that in half and
I
have.
mean, that is a huge number of
Yeah, it
pages.
was pretty cool though. It's like when you would hold it in your hand. I think the last one I had to rent a van. Not, I had to borrow a van. I had to find somebody with a van to go to pick them up because it wouldn't fit in the car. It was cool.
Yeah, his Outsider comes out like twice a year, and like Razor Cake I think is like every 3 months. So like, but that's still a tremendous amount of work. So when it comes to the website, do you have a like working schedule for how yeah, it's just kind of
Just
goes with like
whenever I
whatever
feel like it. Because
comes
it's like
in, it goes.
I feel like it's
Yeah,
like there's times when I do like stuff and it's like the engagement on like Instagram or it's like this is not there. So I'm like kind of like I'm gonna do it when it's like convenient for me, enjoyable. I don't want
yeah,
it to be stressed. I don't go crazy
yeah,
with it. And so it's like I like to have an interview up every 2 weeks or so. But then I have other things that I could plug in the meantime. I could put up. I just posted one review. Sometimes I post like 6 or 8 reviews all at once. Sometimes, like if it's a big album, like the new Madball is coming out and on the
yeah.
24th. So that one will probably be like an entire post just dedicated just to the Madball review. I'll try to have like photos, the album cover, like insights, the whole review into one post. And but then other times when it's like I can have like other reviews where it's like 6 at a time. Then sometimes they do like looking back type of posts, like on Instagram where it's like oh,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
remember this interview from I don't know, like '99, and I'll have like throw something in about from back in the day.
I started doing Flashback Fridays, and every Friday I'm releasing a previous podcast from this series, just because I'm like, I've been doing this now for coming on 2 years, and there are people that have caught on to it and recently that maybe haven't gone back and seen some of the earlier videos. I'm like, social media grows and changes in different people. I was like, no reason not to keep resharing stuff. That stuff's still good content, good stories. So you must get a bunch of reviews. I know I have you on my press list, so I know every release I have, I'm blasting you with about 100 other people. Like, how do you manage that and decide? Oh, I'm just not even going to deal with it. I mean, I know when I was doing reviews, even just doing like Spotify playlists, I get like a dozen emails a day. I was like, I don't have time to listen to a dozen new songs
Yeah,
today.
that's hard. I listen to like this stuff. It's like what is hardcore these days? It's like everything's punk.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what it is. It could be like synthesizers and it's punk. That drives me insane. It's like I'm like listening to stuff. I'm like, dude, I'm reading it in my head. I'm like, dude, this is not hardcore. This is fucking death metal. Anyway, I click on stuff if I hear like gargled like like or like and it's like just totally not our style. I'll just ignore it. But if it's in the realm of punk or hardcore, I'll write back like, give it a listen, or we're going to listen to it. We're going to check it out more. And then the ones that I really like, I keep in my inbox, and then I go back to them. Play them in the car. I have it. My commute to work right now is only like 20 minutes, so I have 20 minutes going, 20 minutes coming back, and then I don't really listen to music in the house, which is kind of weird. I'm like a car music person.
No, I understand. A lot of people are. I have more records than I could ever have time to listen to because I spend a lot of time in my car driving around. So like the car is definitely,
Yeah, but
one of those
I'd
things
say
for
I
me.
don't know, maybe a dozen emails come a day. Maybe like one of them is hardcore punk adjacent, and as you know, Fridays are like insane because everything comes out on Fridays.
So I always put my shit out on Tuesdays.
Smart man.
I do Tuesdays. I do everything on Tuesdays because I know that everyone comes out on Fridays, and it is interesting. Like I'll get people like, "Hey, your hardcore punk rock ska metal playlist. I have this." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, maybe you were into punk rock 15 years ago, and I will grasp that there is some punk adjacentness, but like Yeah, I don't know what that is, and it's fine, and it's just not my jam. But I have no disrespect to you. You're creating art that's good for you. It's just, even when it comes to hardcore, I tend to be like hardcore when all hardcore was punk. Not all punk was hardcore, and only some hardcore sounded like metal. It was like Minor Threat, Bad Brain, 7 Seconds, Kill Your Idols. Like it was that's my idea of hardcore. But now I have to say hardcore punk most of the time because
I'm definitely open.
punk
I'm
rock
definitely
is.
open to the heavier stuff. It's usually like the heavier stuff that has the tuned down vocals is what usually loses me.
Yep.
I'm just not into that.
Yep. I mean, and I like metal, but I go to shows that say they're hardcore, and I feel like it's like this is all just metal bands, which is fine. Like I'm wearing a metal band T-shirt. I like metal. Just say you're a metal band if you're a metal band. So it's all good. It's all good. So what would you say is like did you ever have one interview that's like, oh my fucking god, this is the interview that I'm so like if you had to have in your obituary an interview that like you want like clips of it mentioned in your obituary, who's the person you interviewed?
Really, no. It's like I don't really look at the bands like I don't I'm, they're not, I don't idolize the bands. I always felt like these bands are just like peers. It's like
I appreciate
the
that.
lines are a little blurred now these days. I have like a thing where it's like I'm not crazy about bands that like the bands don't really interact. It's like kind of like everybody's in the back in a back room. But I also kind of understand
Yeah,
why they do that because it's like the overall culture has become a thing where people want autographs and people don't know when to walk away from a band. But I kind of miss like I went to the B&B Bowl and I went to those straight ahead shows in Brooklyn. And there were very few people from the bands that were walking around. And again, I kind of get it. It's like they probably get if whoever comes out and is like walking around, they're going to get attacked by people asking them a million questions, pictures, probably autographs. It's just kind of weird for them too. But I kind of miss that. But so
no, I get that, and I think they could also be like a product of like if they're on tour. I did a show at Empire Underground in Albany with a bunch of touring bands, and I went back into their the green room, for lack of a better word, and I'm just bringing them some waters, and I introduced myself to the band members I didn't know, and when I walked in, none of them were talking. They'd all been quietly like just doing whatever, so maybe just staring into space, like getting themselves mentally prepared for the
mhm.
show, just decompressing from being on the road for 3 weeks. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna get out of here because I know me. I'm gonna start talking, and I don't want to disturb whatever peacefulness y'all had going on. And the one dude was like, no, no, we're all friends now. It's all good. It's like, no, we are friends. And you want to come out of here and hang out there? I'll happy to talk to you. But I walked in here and I felt the vibe was everybody was relaxing and chilling and not even engaging with each other. So I'm not going to come in here and be the rock thrown in the calm pond that you guys have that you're doing before your show comes on. Because I get it. Everyone has a different way they prepare for shows. Like I can't sit still. I love talking to people before I play a show. But at the same time, if I talk to the same person more than 5 minutes, I start to get antsy. Not because of who the person is, but because I'm stationary. And I feel like I have to just keep
Mhm.
moving because I have this pent up energy.
One of the things going back to your original question was that I just thought of was I did this thing called
Yeah.
the name game a couple of years back where why is your band called this? Why is your band called Agnostic Front? Why is your band called Minor Threat? And I didn't think that Ian Mackay would write back to me, but I wrote to him like, hey, I got one question interview for you. How'd you get the name Minor Threat, or why do you have the name Minor Threat? And he wrote a nice email with explanation. And so I guess that was like the one I was most surprised about, kind of like sending this email off. There's no way this guy's going to respond to me, and sure enough, he did. He seems
Yeah.
like a very engaging guy. Like the people, all the pictures at the house and everything.
Yeah. He's a very nice guy. I met him a couple times. Once in high school, I interviewed him for a school project that I was doing on positive force, and I interacted with him very, very slightly here and there. And then I did a show in DC for a band's record I'd put out, and he kindly came out to the show and bought the record. And I just thanked him for coming out, and it was good to see you, being around. I was like, you know, I think it's important that people that have been around doing this for a long time that you shouldn't put them on pedestals, right? But at the same time, like people look at them and it's like, oh, you're that guy, you've been doing this, but you're still coming out to some small band show and representing and being part of the scene. And I think that's really important to show that you should still do that, even if you're in a quote unquote band that is seminal or successful or whatever. come out and still be part of the rest of the world, the rest of us.
Yeah, I get it though. I see both sides. It's like I sit here, maybe I'm going like the bands don't come out and hang out with the people anymore. But if I was in one of the bands, it's like I would be like, why are these people asking me for autographs? It's like I always felt like it was like a weird thing and photos. And you hear the story that I saw you.
I mean, you
I
just want
saw
to be
you in
treated like regular
Pennsylvania.
people.
You know, they probably do that every night of every tour. So that could be one of the reasons why you don't see him as much. You know.
It's like almost anyone else. Like I in my area in Kingston, Kiefer Sutherland came out to like one of my shows, and it was like, Kiefer Sutherland. I was like, yep, and I'm gonna leave him alone. He's at a show. He's watching music. He does not want me coming up and telling me I'm a fan of his movies. He's not here for that. He's here to just be part of the crowd like everyone else. And I've talked to the bartenders like, oh yeah, he comes in. If you treat him like a person, he will hang out and do shots and drink and be a good guy. Like, but if you start treating him like he's a star, he'll get up and leave.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to be treated that way, which I get. You know, you want to just be able to come in and sit down and have a drink and talk to the person next to you like anyone else. You want to come out to a show and be able to watch music, and if you're having a conversation, you don't want it to be, you know, someone being all like, "Oh my God, I love everything you've done," or "I love you." I was like, it was very nice to say, right? But at the same time, I think, you know, it's if I was a person that people said that to, which they don't, which is fine because I've never done anything like that. It just be like, you know, just talk to us, you know. Like you and I bumped into each other at the Mets game, and you and I are not like whatever, but we just talk to each other like people. I think that's how everybody wants to be treated. So, what would you say at this point is the trickiest part about
The
keeping
trickiest part is just balancing like real life. You know, I have a kid, wife, house, work. You know, it's like it's not my job. It's just a hobby. You know, so it's like kind of like not falling into the traps where chasing too many projects at once. When I talked to Holly from Outside a Magazine today, we do the Bring the Noise radio show, and it's like, you know, we're stretched thin. It's like a lot of the time that we have that we consider our free time is spent, you know, doing stuff. You know, I'd love to binge watch a series of a show or listen to, you know, the second Iron Maiden album, you know, or Master of Puppets. It's like, you know, just like mindlessly listen to music. I'm constantly listening to new demos, new music, and I don't really have time to flip back to listen to like old stuff that, you know, I don't know. I guess that is. It's like, you know, time management, I guess, managing my personal life and you know, the time that it takes to do all the website stuff. You know, each interview that I do is like hours and
I mean,
hours.
that
It's
makes
like it could be like a short. Like I put out an interview with Ricky from Flat Spot Records yesterday, and it was a generally short interview. You know, maybe like 12 questions, and it was just, you know, thinking of the graphics that I was going to use, and it's like now I've gotten a little savvy with like, you know, a particular app that I've been using, and out of nowhere, it's like now I'm like spending like all time just for like one little photo where I just would have threw the photo up. I'm like, let me put this gradient background in. Let me see what font looks better to put like a header over it. And it's like yesterday, like, you know,
yes.
before putting it up, the layout, which should have took me like, I don't know, like 20 minutes to do, half hour tops. I ended up, you know, taking maybe like an hour to do that. And then to make the social media post, it's like I was dropping quotes over the pictures, and it was like, it ended up being like 3 hours worth of work. I was like, oh shit. It's like, but it was fun. I just generally, you know, had a lot of fun doing it. So, but yeah, managing time.
I think that's a trick, right? Like you have to enjoy doing it. It can't be drudgery. Like after this podcast is over, my buddy Trev, who runs Struggling Artist Record Club, he kind of does a lot of the basic production for me, cuts everything out that needs to be cut out, adds the intro, the outro for me. But then I have to go back and rewatch the whole episode and adjust the transcript that gets auto-generated by the program. And then after I've done that, I'm like, okay, now I've done that. Now I've got to pick a clip for the social media, usually 2 clips, one for each week. So I used to do this every other week. And then I've got to go like, okay, now I've got to make the clips on Canva with the framing. All right, now I got to draft up the IG captions. Oh, I've also got to do the email blast. So I have that. I was like, oh, I also put it up on YouTube and also the streaming. I got to come up with the show descriptions, which are different than the IG captions. And
75
like, hours
views.
of work for. Yeah, I wish. It's it's interesting. It's hard to like. I don't like I said. I don't jump into the analytics. I can see on YouTube pretty quickly who's watched the video. I mean, when I go to upload a new one, it'll usually tell me how many people have been watching or listening. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. It is. I do this for the love of doing it, and most of the time, the people I interview, they'll collaborate and they'll share it. But very rarely does someone like go, this interview is something that I'm going to share like every day for like 2 weeks and push it. But that's okay. It's not done for that purpose, right? It's done to, I don't know, to learn and to grow. Like, I love learning about what you're doing right now. Like, I've never done a zine. I've debated doing one. I half-assed started one and never like finished it. So like just knowing that you've been doing this for off and on since the 90s, I mean, that's pretty incredible. That's an incredible amount of dedication to the scene that you love. So tell me more about what you do with Holly with the radio show. I've seen the social media posts. I haven't actually listened in yet. Is it something that like you have to listen to?
No, that's our problem. Okay, the radio show is called Bring the Noise. It's on every Wednesday, 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. It's on for 2 hours. It's on WXAX Internet Radio, which is in the Hudson Valley. And so you can listen to it. Since it's internet, you can listen to it in China or Hawaii or anywhere in between. So, but you have to be listening at the times. There's no playback. We're working on that, and it's another thing that we're doing that is takes tons of time to do. And what happened with it initially, the owner of the station who passed away probably maybe a couple months into us doing it, came to Holly at a show and said that he did we want to do a punk show on his station, which is generally all metal. So he gave us this 2-hour slot. We said yes. Okay. And basically Holly and I curate. We have like a private Spotify playlist that we drop songs on, and then we go, okay, you get like, you put in this amount of songs, you put this amount of songs in. We have like scene news. We have Trouble Bound does like a theme song at the beginning of the show and the outro of the show. And it's a really, really good song. I'm like, geez, it's like, they did this for free. They were in the recording studio and they wrote like a little, Bring the Noise jingle, I guess, if you can call it. And, again, we have like talking parts where, talk about the song that was played. We talk about tours, shows coming up, and just stuff in general. And hardcore and punk to me is stuff that is generally best listened to as like a playlist. So each week it's like we're curating this like, we joke around that Holly is more of the punk person of the two of us. I'm more of the caveman, hardcore, kind of person. And the two of those blend together when you play. I don't know who we have on today. We had like Naked Reagan was one of the bands, and then we have who's a little heavier. Strife was another band that was on. Second time I said Strife in this interview, and I didn't think I would say it once. Great. But anyway, the melding of the two, it's like I like to have where it's not all a block of all punk songs or all heavy songs. And it's like when you blend the two, it's like to me, it's the most beautiful thing. When I grew up, there was a radio station, or WNYU had a radio show called Crucial Chaos. And there were different hosts throughout the years. There was guy Johnny Stiff, there was Spermicide, there was Rachel Rosen was another. And they would have, I forgot what day of the week it is. This is me getting old. But they were on from 9 to 10:30. 9 to 10 o'clock was music and DJing. And then 10 to 10:30 was always a band live in the studio. The 9 to 10 period, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., was a situation where it would just be like that. It's like, it would be like an older punk band. And then it would be like Gorilla Biscuits, new demo song. And then it would be like, it was just beautiful. And I feel like, hardcore and punk is best listened to like a playlist. And that's basically what we're curating every week. 2 hours of this, it's usually around 50 songs. And it's a beautiful thing. I love it. I be listening to the show and I'll text Holly and I'm like, I don't know. It's like, how do we get this word out to more people that, this is a great thing. And the people that do listen in, they say like, I really, really like, what you guys are doing here. It's like, it's a great mix.
And you pre-record the episodes?
Yeah, it's like, so I basically on Sunday night, I send off bunch of MP3s with like, whatever bullshit I want to talk about for that week. And then she, sends it off to the guy who produces the show saying like, after song 12, play this MP3 of us talking and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, that sounds like a lot of work. And even the playlist, because I'm thinking about it. I try and do like a Spotify playlist of new stuff every week. And one, it's hard to keep up on doing it and then sharing it on social media. But even like keeping it down to just 20 songs, is just you can't just pick 20 random songs. They have to be 20 songs. And then you got to put them in a way that flows together versus like, just randomly throwing them up there.
Yeah,
And it
it's like
sounds
kind of
you're
like
really taking
I
care to
like
do
when the
that.
playlist. It's like on Sunday, not late Sunday night. I usually look it over. I'm like, this song is the perfect. I think Poison Idea, Just Get Away, was the first song today, off of Feel the Darkness. I love that song. And I'm like, we want to open with this one, and then go into it was like a newer punk band that was song 2, and then it goes into this band Fury from California, track 3. I'm like, this is flows the right way. I could just see driving in the car, listening to it, and like going, this is a great show.
I mean, it just sounds like you're making a
We're
mixtape,
making a mixtape
back
every
in the
week,
80s and the 90s,
basically.
right? Like, and making a mixtape every week. Man, it is such a shame you can't find a way
It's
to
like
archive that so
we
people
were
can come back
using
and listen to
Spotify, and
it.
I think we're using Apple now, and they have ways where um, you can't like kind of like somehow podcasts can do it. They can play music, but somehow if you have like a radio show, I don't know exactly what exactly the rules are. The one way to beat all this is for us to have MP3s of everything, and then we could have playback. But imagine getting 50 songs every week, and you're texting. Well,
Yeah,
how
it's
about
expensive
stuff
as
like that's
hell.
not
Yeah,
available to buy? Like let's say you want to play Suicidal Tendencies, I Want More. That's
sure.
not you're not going to email the PR person from Suicidal. Can we please? We're a little radio show in New York. Can you send us an MP3?
Sure.
And I don't think you can buy an MP3 of the song, just the individual song.
Yeah. I mean, you would have to like have the CD and then rip the CD to your computer like the old days back when like I used to like rip MP3s off of my CDs and then you'd
That's
have that then upload it. But even that is
yes, that
questionably
that
with
would be
its
like
legality.
I mean, would they find you? Maybe like if you did it long enough and you got maybe a little buzz about you.
Or they'll
I don't
take your
know.
radio show down
It's
or
fun.
something
It's
like
fun what it
that.
is. It's kind of cool in a way.
Yeah.
The times that we're on work for other countries, like Europe. At 10 o'clock, when it's on 10 o'clock in the morning, us, it's
Yeah.
6 hours, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon their time. So it's like they could be going home, and just listening to it on the way home or when they get home, And then I think a lot of people here, or anywhere, they work in an office to listen to music and stuff, depending on how, what exactly the job is. But it's like, I know, you know, uh,
Yeah.
people that work from home, and it's like they have music playing in the background.
Sure. Sure. No, that makes sense. I mean, I used to listen to, Capital Radio was a thing in D.C. Chris Suspect from the Suspects. I think he was at a bar, talked to someone like WJFK or whatever, and he was complaining about the shit of radio. And the guy's like, "You think you could do better?" He's like, "Yeah, I think I could do better." And they gave him like a 11 o'clock midnight radio show that he did live, and he would bring in bands like Squatweiler and things like that, and it was pretty rad. And he did it for a couple of years. And I definitely was like, "Oh, I need to listen to this," but I had to be awake, had to remember it was happening. Um, the closest other thing, like, watching the Headbangers Ball. I grew up watching that all the time. I didn't even know what Saturday Night Live was because I was so obsessed with Headbangers Ball, when I was in
Oh,
junior high.
another thing that we did with the show more recently is every Friday we come out. We teamed up with New Noise magazine, where we have a crucial picks thing,
I love New
where
Noise.
we pick out a couple of songs that are generally new the last month or two, and we kind of like highlight them. We have like a little reel that we create, and it's been getting some good traction. It's like an extra thing, midweek, between the show and between shows, something extra, and then we blast those songs, we on the following episode. So this Friday we should probably have 4 new songs. Various bands are not really picked out yet, and we'll give like a little write up on them, and we'll have a photo of the album, say when it's coming out, and that's been pretty cool. It's and New Noise magazine has gotten behind us to give us a little bit more presence and a little bit more backing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, New Noise is great. Lisa was on the podcast about a year ago, and they do a lot of really great work. And both the print zine and the online one, they look super professional, even though I know that they operate as a smaller entity than you would think until you
They
talk to them.
The guy Chris who works for them did an
That's pretty
interview with
cool.
me. So this hopefully I get my hands on one when the new issue comes out. They have a new issue coming out in the next couple of weeks with Madball on the go.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've seen the promo for that, or maybe I've just seen the promo for the Madball record coming out. I know I've certainly seen a lot with their image around lately. So that's pretty dope. That's pretty rad. What else you got going on? So you got the In Effect website, you got the Wax, you're working with New Noise. Anything else that you're like
I'm
spreading
basically like
yourself thin
the
on doing?
outsider distro guy on Long Island. It's like
Yeah.
I usually I'm on Long Island. Outsider is based in Fishkill, up in I don't know what county is that? Way up.
Um, I'm in Ulster. It might be Dutchess,
Yeah,
but
so
I
it's
don't
up
think so.
there.
It's on
So
the other side of the Hudson.
we
I'm
usually have a
not so good
meetup
with that
point in
stuff here. Yeah.
Yonkers, and it's kind of like back the cars up back to back, and we like load in like a couple hundred, like I take like 500-600 of them now, and then I usually get rid of. I don't want to take too many, and then I drive to all the record stores on Long Island, and then I hand them out at shows, and Outsider runs usually two in effect interviews per issue. Like they'll take something that's been run on my site and they'll do like a condensed version and they throw it in Outsider.
Oh, that's pretty
And
rad. I think I've seen that. I don't think I realized that it
yeah,
was
I think I
transferred
might
from
have
your
done a
website
couple
to
of them
there,
that
though.
were original ones, but most of the time they're ones that were on the website and they get transferred over in a condensed form into Outsider. So yeah, so it's like I'm a big backer of Outsider. Johnny with Troublebound, and her fiance, and Outsider magazine. So it's like I like to help them.
Yep.
That she always was a person that would send her magazine into me. Hey, can you do a review? And then as time went on and we got to know each other a little bit better, it was kind of like, hey, you want to do a radio show? And I'm like, I'm the type of person that's like slow to accept change. And I'm like, whoa, a radio show? What are you talking about? That sounds like more
Sure.
work that I have to do. What are you crazy? What are you crazy lady?
Yeah.
But yeah, so now I do it. It's part of the repertoire,
Yep.
and
No.
just another thing that I get off on. It's a lot of fun.
No. Holly's great. I mail out a copy of Outsider with every record that I sell. So I actually have to get more from her because I had a good month the other month. So I
That's
already went
awesome.
through well over 100 of her copies. So I need to grab some more. I'm mailing out like a dozen or so records this Saturday. And I'm like, I have no more Outsider scenes to put in it. It makes me kind of sad. I like folding them and putting them in. And like, yeah, I'm sending a
Yeah, we
piece of
got
Hudson Valley out to
Dave
the rest of
Campbell
the
from
world.
State of Mind Records on Long Island. He does the same thing. I give him a bunch of them, and then he gets them, puts them in his mail order.
Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to be there to help each other. I mean, Holly's always been helpful to me. Like, I think Holly and Johnny and Troublebound and RBNX, some of the first people I met. Like, I moved here and briefly was in a band called Leave It Behind. And I think the second show I played with them was at the Chance at Troublebound's return show and the Outsider Magazine's return show. So, like, they immediately welcomed me into their family. Incredibly kind, thoughtful people. And if all goes well, I'm pretty sure it sounds good according to Johnny. I have a Troublebound live record coming out sometime next year in 2027. So I am
Awesome.
stoked to work with them on
They're a
that.
good band. They fly under the radar, and they have a really good back catalog. Their set. I saw them at the 914 Fest a couple weeks ago. They play like a half hour, and it's like there's no
Yep.
soft songs in there. There's no like weak points in the set.
No. I mean, and every time they write something new, it just sounds amazing. So, and all just great musicians. Like, I just watch, Brian play drums or Dan on bass, and, it's like, I was like, okay, you can do that. Fuck yeah. Good. What did I say? I think they used something I said on their the hype sticker on the last record that had come out. I was like the storytelling of Social Distortion, the punk rock of Rancid, and the melodies of oh my god,
Iron Maiden.
fucking A. I can't think of the name of the band.
Okay.
Coxbar. Yeah. I was like, I was going to say Chumhuffer. I was like, no, not
Troublebound,
Chumhuffer. I mean, great
influenced by
band. But
Troublebound.
I was like, why the fuck can I not think of it? Hey, Troublebound, influenced by Troublebound. Yeah. So, are there any bands right now that you like, that like in the last month or so that you just experienced? Or like, oh, this is a band.
There's a ton of demos out that there's demos and like short EPs. I'm like going onto my site now to cheat here. Quick to Judge from Boston, Against the World from Richmond. They got a demo out. It's like these. Human Issue from California. That fucking record is so good. It's
Human Issue is great.
I pray that it doesn't like fall through the cracks. It's like it's almost like a type of band where they're too hardcore for West Coast and they're too punk for the East Coast. And I think I love that shit. I love West Coast bands that play a little bit grittier punk, and they mix their songs up. They're fucking awesome.
Yeah. Hitting that middle line can be hard. Like my band Callin' Dead in Florida, we were always the heaviest punk band or the lightest metal band on the show. We never fit in exactly.
Yeah, there's a million bands. It's like, I mean, not every EP, not every album is great. That comes out obviously, or else we'd all be, all these bands would be rich and famous. But it's like, if you get like 2-3 solid songs and then add it, then your next album has 4 songs and there's a lot of good music out. Like the band.
There are so many good bands that have never been recognized. I mean, how many local bands that like never left their hometown but was fucking
and even the existing bands that like the legacy bands like the new Terror record's amazing. There's just like there's so many records that are out that are coming out. Oh, I'm looking at Scarborough. They're freaking awesome. Also.
Yeah, Scarborough's great. I mean, and that's part of the thing is right. Like, I run a record label. I think I put out a lot of good records, but I mean, it's like you said, 1,000 songs come out on Friday. I put out records I think are great. Some people don't dig live albums. That's okay. I think mine sound dope. So if you don't like them, you're wrong. But it's hard to cut through when there's so much out there.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, it's just this cold that I'm trying to like fight off, and my water bottle's empty. Like I'm a fucking middle school kid drinking my water bottle. I never thought I'd be a guy walking around with a water bottle. I was like, I used to drink water out of the hose or out of the faucet of the sink at the bathroom. Like all of a sudden now I was like, oh, I'm gonna walk around with my I don't know what kind of brand this is. Someone complimented me on the other day. I was like, I don't care. It's just a bottle. I don't buy it for its color,
Okay.
but I do drink a lot of water. Especially when I'm like coffee and sick. So where do you
I
go to
live
shows now
near
most often?
Amityville Music Hall in Long Island, so it's maybe like 10 minutes from my house. There's a
excellent.
VFW that's near my house in Massapequa. That's maybe like 5 minutes away. I go there, and then usually I end up in the Brooklyn shows, like the Brooklyn Monarch, it's places like that. Also, there's a place in Queens that people should look out for, Bridge and Tunnel Brewery in Ridgewood.
Yes, I've heard a lot of good things about that. I have the band I think that manages
Rich,
one of them.
Rich the guitar player.
I had them coming up to
Rich is the guitar player for Dead Blowhammer. He owns the place.
Yeah,
and they're looking to put more shows on. So it's kind of like putting the word out, like. And then my friend that does Newfound Hope Records was like kind of like he did it in the early '90s. He's kind of come back, and he's one of the people that's like putting shows or going to be helping putting on shows there. So it's like I feel like that could be. It's a great venue in that it's like you get 100 people in there, and it's absolutely packed out. And it's like you could like reentry.
That's
you can walk in, you can walk out. Last time I went there, like maybe like a month and a half ago, there was a guy selling tacos on the street. It's just it's cool. It's a cool look.
Awesome. Is it brewery? But is it all ages?
Being over 21, that's something I don't usually pay attention to. I don't know. I would think it might be 21.
See, yeah, and that's what's always on my mind. Like I've grown up in DC, everything was always all ages, and I've only got a couple venues here that you can get away with that. Reason and Ruckus and Poughkeepsie is one of them, and then there's like a Unicorn Bar in Kingston, but they don't really do punk and hardcore. I can do ska shows there, but unless it's a great queer bar. So if I have a queercore band, they'll be down with it. But in general, they try to eschew the things that are overly aggressive. But it's hard to find a good all ages spot, which, part of me is like, I'm not sure I would have been into punk and hardcore if at 15 I couldn't go to a show and see bands playing, and then like start playing in bands when I was 16. Like that was really
16 was the magic number to get into shows when I would start going to shows. I remember some of us were 16 trying to go into CBs, and the others were 15, and we had like all sorts of like weird ways to get in. They would stamp. One of the ones was they would stamp your hand, and then you would run right outside and like rub your hand onto the other person.
That's hilarious. I love that. Yeah, everything was just all ages in DC, so I never even had to fake it. It was just something, and I don't know if that's a holdover from like, the Minor Threat Discord Fugazi world where they just said all ages. It was very rare.
Yeah, I think the majority of the shows even now, not that like I said, I don't really totally pay attention, but it's like kind of like when you see on a flyer when it says 21 and up, it's kind of like, oh, that looks a little weird because you don't see it that often.
Yeah. I wish I saw it less. It's unfortunate, but it is kind of what it is, I'm afraid. Did you get to go to Too Many Advantages?
They played a million songs. It's like, I'm like, these guys are going to sleep for days after this set.
So sad I missed that.
They played easily 25 songs.
I have loved them for 20 plus years. I did they're like my third release I did, and I did 2 songs for them for the 7-inch that they put out for the show. And I was like, I can't come. I had just booked a run for this band called Burning Hag from Philly, coming through the whole Hudson Valley. And I'm like, I'm sorry, when I'm a promoter and I book a show, I'm at the show. I don't pass it off to someone else, even if it means I have to miss out on a show that means the world to me. I was like, I don't know, I take that responsibility pretty seriously.
I was at the show that they did for, what was the one where they had the Stanley Cup on the cover of the album? They actually had like their own Stanley Cup, and it was like
the Stanley Cup attached.
Pretty
to the
sure.
keg.
So there was this bar in Valley Stream
Dynasty?
That's right underneath the train station, Railroad Inn, I think it's called, and it was fucking hilarious. It was just like drunken mayhem. It was like the thing was getting kicked around. It was like passed around. There was like some. Like, I don't want to say maybe a homeless guy. It was like some weird dude. He was like, let's just call him a weird dude. Weird dude that didn't belong at a show or looked like he belonged at a show or ever heard a hardcore band. He just happened to be there and he's dancing in the pit. It was fucking awesome. That's just one of many. Well, not so many. I don't know how many times I saw him, but there was once of a bunch of times that I saw Two Man where just total ridiculousness going on. There were a lot of.
Even when they're not playing, like I did a show with them in Baltimore, like 2001 or something, and my band, the Overprivileged, we were touring to Used Limousine, and we were touring up to Canada, and while we were playing our set, they went out and like graffitied our whole limo with "Fuck Canada," "We Hate Hockey," "What's That a Boot," the NHL logo with a big cross going through it, and I'm like, motherfuckers, we literally have to cross the Canadian border. You're such fucking assholes, but at the same time, we were so fucking we laughed so hard, and that just goes to show you, like, when your friends like that, it's like, oh, you just totally vandalized our tour vehicle as we're about to tour Canada. And instead of being angry, we're like, that's fucking hilarious. And of course, we're in our young 20s, so we're so smart that when we finally, like, are crossing up into Toronto from Michigan, we decided to stop at, like, a Lowe's and buy house paint, and we bought house paint and rollers and painted it purple with a gold racing stripe, because that's inconspicuous. I don't know how we got into Canada. We did. Somehow they let us in. They were not going to let us back into the country, though. It was right after 9/11, and our guitarist were actually touring to his wedding in Canada. And so he wasn't with us, and the car was in his name. So there was all sorts of problems when we tried to come back across. So I still blame it on Two Man. If it had been a normal limo, we probably would have gotten through. Yeah, but I love those guys. It's funny, I was at Not Croydon Fest, and Aaron, coach, I was like watching this band called the Doom Stompers, great ska band, because Not Croydon Fest is all ska, and I was like, That can't be. Is that Coach from Two Man Advantage playing in a ska band? I think that's what's happening right now. Blew my fucking mind. So good to see him though. Great fucking band. So I like ska. I just never thought I would see Coach playing ska. All right, my brother. I like to try and keep these to about an hour, just so it's a nice snippet of things and we share things. Anything else you want to close out with and share before we get going?
InEffectHardcore.com. We're open 24 hours a day, 365, as long as the web servers are running. Check us out. We got regular updates. We're InEffectHC on Instagram. And what else? We have a Facebook page, InEffect Hardcore. Check out the radio show, Bring the Noise Radio on Instagram. And that's about it. We appreciate everybody. We're humble. We don't got any fucking egos or anything like that. We're just here to help out hardcore and just, make no money doing this. This is all done out of love.
No, you're doing good stuff. And I'm going to put all those links in the show description. So if you're wherever streaming service you're watching this on, watching it on YouTube, you can go to the description. All the links to all their social medias, websites are going to be in there. So check it out. While you're there, please also check out the podcast itself. Follow the podcast. Check out DCPC Live. Check out the records and shows we got going on. And please check out the social media for my executive producer, Trev Allen, from Struggling Artist Record Club. Every single month, he curates a bunch of records across the hardcore punk world. He selects them for you from around the country, sometimes around the world, sends them out to your area. I think he took that over from one of the dudes from the Ducky Boys. So it's been going around for a hot minute. He's got a great taste in music. So, sign up. Get some cheap lower cost records. Get surprised by some dope ass shit that you might not know about. It's like reading In Effect Hardcore but getting it in a box. And then getting to listen to the records. So, Chris, it has been a pleasure. I am so glad you agreed to do this show with me. I've always been impressed with the work that you do. So thank you for doing what you do and supporting the scene the way you do it.
Thanks for having me on, Scott. I appreciate the offer.
Appreciate you, buddy. Good night, everybody. Take care.